Hey, I wanted to make this video for a while now, talking about challenges that I faced and problems that I had while living in Japan and working in Japan. So I've been here for about 5 months now, and a couple of the decisions that I made, especially early on, made things a bit harder than they had to be. So I thought I'd make a video and put it on YouTube, and if anyone's in a similar situation to where I was about 5 or 6 months ago, where you're about to move to another country, especially Japan, um, maybe this is good advice. If I had watched a video like this, not that I researched, but if I had, then it would have saved me some grief early on. So about five or so things that I think were bad moves on my part, six blunders on my part that I'll talk about, and hopefully if you're about to move to Japan or even another country, having watched this, hopefully you don't make the same mistakes. Okay, so number one is actually, at least at first, don't worry about home internet. Don't worry about setting up an internet connection at home. It took like a whole month from going to the store with a translator to actually the service being installed at my place. And even after it was installed at my place, it still took ages to set it up properly, and the configuration was a nightmare. And this is in Japan. They brought over four different devices just to get online. Only two of which really were essential, but there was so much mucking around and configuring and speaking with translators and so on and so on. Down the line, after you've been here a few months, maybe, but at least in the beginning, don't worry about home internet. Which brings me on to point number two: get a smartphone with an internet connection. At least in Japan, smartphones with internet connections have unlimited data, so if you really had to use the internet on your computer, you could always set up your iPhone as a wireless hotspot and just use that with unlimited data, so there's no problem. Just maybe it's not as fast as a cabled connection, but you'd have that pretty much within a day. You walk out of the store and you'd have your phone, unlike waiting a good 6 weeks like I did for home internet. And even then, occasionally it drops out and has other problems. Get a smartphone with an internet connection. I made the mistake of cheaping out. I got an old phone. I thought, yeah, I'll take the simpler deal. I'll take the cheaper option and I'll just settle for internet at my place. Bad decision. Not only was internet at my place a nightmare to set up, and it took forever to set up, but the other problem as well is actually the other advantage of having a smartphone with an internet connection is you've got the GPS feature. You can use Google Maps, which is especially useful in Japan. We don't have street names here, so it's a real pain trying to navigate without a GPS. Some people, the people that I've spoken to over here that actually do well without a GPS, they're great at using landmarks and navigating with landmarks. But with me, I like to think of a grid, kind of like a grid in my head with streets, and turn left on this particular street, turn right on that particular street, which works great in Australia, perfect in Australia, but here it fails because there are no street names or road signs or anything like that, or very rarely. So you need the GPS, or probably you would like to have the GPS, which is another reason to get the smartphone. But the other thing as well is for the social click, everybody over here uses Line, which is kind of like WhatsApp or Viber or even Facebook Messenger. But everybody uses Line, so you want to be inside the social click. You want to get Line basically. So yeah, don't worry about home internet straight away. Get a smartphone, not only for the GPS feature, not only for the internet, but also for Line. Anything else you need. I ended up spending, $250 on a GPS, which doesn't even work as good as Google Maps, and then another $250 on an iPod. So I ended up spending the same amount of money as I would have paid upfront on an iPhone or a good Android anyway. You're better off just getting a smartphone. If you have to have internet at your house, do it later. First things first, get a smartphone with internet. Number three, there are no street signs coming into Japan. Other countries may be different, but with Japan there are no street signs. There's no George Street, Smith Street, Tokyo Street, Shinjuku Street. No, there's none of that. The whole street system is completely different. Therefore, again, you'll need some kind of GPS unless you're a really good navigator. So double double support for getting the smartphone. Point number 4, when you go to a bank for the first time and you talk about getting an account, assuming you're going to be staying here for a reasonably long time, you're going to need a Japanese bank account. Actually, I recommend getting a debit card. Again, I made a bad decision in the beginning. I thought just take the simpler option, just get a key card, don't worry about the debit card. I have my Australian credit card for that. I'll just transfer money into that whenever I need to. Easier said than done. Yeah, get a debit card. You may need to send money overseas. If you have a debit card, you can always use PayPal or some other payflow gateway to do that. You may want to purchase something online. You don't know. You're better off just getting a debit card and not having to worry about it later. Don't get a key card, get a debit card. Number 5, actually this took me a good 5 months to figure out. I live in an apartment, and actually I have 2 mailboxes. I have a mailbox at my door where some mail gets delivered, but I actually have another mailbox on the first floor, kind of like in the lobby. And I actually didn't know that. It took me, I mean, my coworkers actually told me after like 5 months of me living here. I never noticed. And yeah, I was thinking to myself, man, I have so much mail that's not being delivered, certain bills aren't arriving and so on. Yeah, they're just being delivered in the other mailbox. So if you do come to Japan, or maybe probably even in other countries as well, if you live in an apartment, you may have 2 mailboxes, one in your door and one in the lobby. Having never lived in an apartment like this before, yeah, I didn't know about that. So I was actually late on a few bills just because of that one problem. Yeah, check both mailboxes if you live in an apartment with many floors and so on. And lucky last, I can't really say objectively that this is all companies in Japan. I can't objectively say that this is all companies overseas, but at least in my company we have an interesting way of working with your time and calculating your payments. Basically, we have a card and a machine, and whenever you arrive at work, you put your card in the machine, it prints a timestamp on the card, and whenever you leave, you do the same thing, and it prints your leaving timestamp on the card. And then once a month, somebody goes through and adds up all the time, and so on and so on. That probably was really common in the 70s, but at least in Australia, I've never seen a system like that still being used. That on its own, okay, it's a little outdated, but it's not really a problem. But the other issue is we have various policies to do with those times that I didn't really understand in the beginning. So I got sick a fair while ago, and I had to take recurring visits to the doctor on Mondays. So I'd be about 15 minutes, half an hour late on Monday. And initially, I had sort of spoken with a few of the people at work and said, "Oh, is it okay if I make up for it on Friday?" Yeah, no problem. And according to my understanding, that was sort of no worries. Yeah, if you're late on Monday, just come in on Friday, make up for it, no drama. That was sort of what I took from it. But actually, that's not really the case. One, our policy is if you arrive early, that doesn't count. That's not something that I was aware of. And the other thing as well is it's not really an implicit agreement like that, and it's not something that can just be done willy-nilly. There's actually a bunch of paperwork that they have to do to make up lost time. So if you're late on Monday and you want to make up for it on Friday, there's actually paperwork you have to fill out. But the paperwork, of course, is in Japanese, so I had never filled out that paperwork. I didn't know it existed. So yeah, actually today I got a bit of a shock where we're sort of talking about, oh, you were late on Monday, but you didn't make up for it, you owe time, and so on and so on. And I'm thinking, hold on, I did on Friday. Yeah, but we didn't fill out the paperwork because you didn't tell anybody. Oh. Yeah, so don't make an assumption about how time is calculated. Don't make an assumption about policies to do with being late and so on and so on. Sending a text message the day before actually isn't really considered enough notice here. Back in Australia, at least in all the companies where I've worked before, that's been fine. But yeah, that's actually not really enough time here. So yeah, just don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions about your timing. Probably better to ask somebody to explain it in detail. All I really understood was, yeah, you know, don't be late. Yeah, no worries. I'll make up for it on Friday. A bit more to it than that. Anyway, those are the six things that I really messed up with. So hopefully, if you're watching this, and you are considering to go overseas and live there or work there or both, hopefully take something away from this and don't make the same mistakes. Life would have been a lot easier if I didn't make six, or even not all six. You know, 4 or 5 mistakes. They really make an impact, potentially on your whole stay. You know, your whole year contract. They can make an impact. Watch it again. Don't make the same mistakes. Thank you. Enjoy.